In the vast tapestry of human history, some threads shine brighter than others. They tell stories of struggle, of faith, and of the unyielding spirit of a people. This is the story of the ancient Hebrews. They were a nation born from a promise, a small tribe wandering through harsh deserts and fertile valleys. Their journey was not an easy one. They were surrounded by mighty empires and fierce tribes, each with their own gods and ambitions. The world around them was a place of constant conflict, a crucible where only the strong or the faithful could hope to survive. Their very existence was a testament to their resilience, a story whispered from one generation to the next. Their neighbors were many, and their intentions were often hostile. To the east lay the Ammonites and the Moabites, distant cousins who became bitter rivals. To the south, the Edomites held the rocky fortresses, their hearts hardened against their brethren, and to the north the Arameans of Damascus built powerful kingdoms that cast a long shadow over the land. But among all these adversaries, one stood out for their relentless aggression and their military prowess. They were the Philistines, the sea people, who settled on the coastal plain and brought with them the secrets of iron, a metal that made their swords and chariots superior in the theater of war. The Philistines were a constant thorn in the side of Israel. They were organized, technologically advanced, and relentlessly expansionist. Their 5 great cities, Gath, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Ekron, formed a powerful league that sought to dominate the entire region. For the early tribes of Israel, who were loosely confederated and often fought amongst themselves, the Philistine threat was existential. They pushed inland from the coast, raiding villages, controlling trade routes, and demanding tribute. The Israelites, armed mostly with bronze and farm tools, were often outmatched, a people living under a shadow of fear, praying for a leader, a champion who could deliver them. This was the world that awaited a hero. It was a time of judges and prophets, a time of desperate battles and miraculous victories. But the people yearned for something more. They yearned for stability, for a king who could unite their scattered tribes into a single powerful nation. They saw the kings of their enemies and wanted one of their own to lead them into battle, to give them a permanent voice among the nations of the earth. It was out of this deep-seated need, this collective cry for deliverance, that the stage was set for the arrival of one of history's most iconic figures, a man who would change their destiny forever. From the quiet rolling hills of Bethlehem came a sound that would echo through eternity. It was not the clash of swords or the call of a war horn, but the simple melody of a harp played by a shepherd boy. His name was David. He was the youngest son of Jesse, overlooked by his family, tasked with the humble job of watching over the sheep. But in the solitude of the fields, something extraordinary was being forged. He learned courage, protecting his flock from lions and bears. He learned patience while watching the stars, and he developed a deep, unshakable faith in his God, a faith that would become the bedrock of his entire life. David's journey from the pasture to the palace began with a single, defiant act. The Philistine army was gathered for battle against Israel in the valley of Elah. With them, they brought their champion, a giant named Goliath of Gath. He was a mountain of a man, clad in heavy bronze armor, who mocked the armies of Israel day after day. The soldiers of Israel, including David's own brothers, were paralyzed with fear. But David, sent only to bring supplies, saw not an unbeatable giant. He saw an enemy defying his God. With nothing but a shepherd's sling and 5 smooth stones, he faced the giant. This was not a battle of strength, but a battle of faith. David trusted not in armor or a sword, but in the power he believed was with him. With a single well-aimed stone, he struck Goliath down, and the entire Philistine army fled in terror. This singular act of bravery catapulted the young shepherd into the national consciousness. He became a hero overnight, celebrated in songs sung by the people. Saul had slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. He was brought into the court of King Saul, the first king of Israel, where he served as a musician and a commander. However, his rapid rise to fame planted a dangerous seed of jealousy in King Saul's heart. The very king he served began to see him as a rival, a threat to his throne. Saul's paranoia grew into a dark obsession, and he repeatedly tried to kill David. The young hero was forced to flee, to become an outlaw living in the caves and wilderness of his own homeland. Yet even in exile, his character shone. He gathered a band of loyal followers, men who were also outcasts, and he forged them into a disciplined fighting force. always showing mercy and honor, even to the king who hunted him. After the tragic death of King Saul in a battle against the Philistines, the path was finally clear. The people of his own tribe, Judah, anointed David as their king, but the nation was still fractured. The northern tribes remained loyal to Saul's house. For years, a bitter civil war divided the very people David sought to unite. Through shrewd diplomacy, unwavering resolve, and a reputation for justice, David gradually won the hearts of all the tribes. At long last, in the city of Hebron, the elders of all Israel came to him and anointed him king over a single, united kingdom. His first great act was to build a new capital. To bridge the divide between the northern and southern tribes, David needed a neutral capital, one that belonged to no single tribe. He set his sights on a formidable Jebusite fortress, a city that had been deemed impregnable, Jerusalem. In a brilliant and daring military operation, David's forces captured the city, establishing it as the political heart of his new kingdom. But he knew that a nation needed more than just a political center, it needed a spiritual one. He brought the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in Israel, to Jerusalem, with great celebration, making the city the holy center for all the people. With the tribes united and a capital established, King David turned his attention to the enemies that had plagued his people for generations. He was no longer just a guerrilla fighter, but the commander of a national army. He launched a series of decisive military campaigns against the Philistines, breaking their power once and for all and confining them to their coastal cities. He then marched east, subjugating the Moabites and the Ammonites. He went north to defeat the Arameans and south to control the Edomites, creating a secure and prosperous Israelite empire that stretched from Egypt to the Euphrates. David's leadership in battle was legendary. He was a brilliant strategist, a charismatic commander who inspired fierce loyalty in his men. He led from the front, sharing the dangers and hardships with his soldiers. But his victories were not just built on military might. He believed that every battle was fought with the help of God. This deep faith gave him and his people the confidence to face overwhelming odds. He transformed a loose collection of frightened tribes into a proud and powerful nation, secure in its borders and confident in its destiny for the first time in its history. King David was not a perfect man. His life was marked by personal failings and family tragedies that brought him great sorrow. Yet his legacy is not defined by his flaws, but by his monumental achievements and his enduring relationship with his people and his God. He was the king who gave Israel its golden age. He established a stable dynasty, a central government, and a professional army. He brought peace and prosperity to the land, allowing culture, music, and worship to flourish. The Psalms, many attributed to him, became the hymn book of the nation, expressions of every human emotion, from despair to exultation. His greatest impact was the unification of the people. Before David, the tribes of Israel were often just that, a collection of separate families who bickered and fought. David gave them a shared identity by creating a central capital in Jerusalem and making it the focus of both their political and religious lives. He wove the 12 tribes into a single national fabric. He created the very idea of Israel as a unified kingdom, a nation-state with a purpose and a place in the world. This unity, forged under his leadership, became the ideal to which future generations would always aspire. David's actions laid the foundation for everything that followed. He dreamed of building a permanent temple for God in Jerusalem, and though he was not permitted to build it himself, he gathered the materials and drew up the plans for his son Solomon to complete. This temple would become the center of Jewish life for centuries. The dynasty he established would rule for 400 years, and the promise of a future king from his lineage, a Messiah, would become a central tenet of faith, a beacon of hope through long centuries of exile and hardship. Ultimately, the story of David is the story of transformation. A shepherd boy became a king, a divided people became a united nation, a land of fear became a secure kingdom. His courage, his faith, and his leadership reshaped the destiny of his people, creating a legacy that has resonated through thousands of years of history. He remains a symbol of the idea that with faith and courage, even the humblest among us can rise to meet the greatest of challenges, leaving behind a story that inspires humanity to this day. David's life shows us that a kingdom is built not just with stone and steel, but with a united heart.